Hi all, and welcome to another Generative Components tutorial. Today we're going to look at 3 ways to incorporate existing geometry into the Generative Components workflow. This will work for both the geometry within the file itself, as well as reference geometry. So let's get started. Here we are in a fresh DGN file with 3 elements. 2 are simple shapes created using the SmartLine tool, and the other is a B-spline curve. The only other item to note is that I've placed the 2 shapes on different levels. For the first method, let's use the Promote Element tool. This is located in the Place Geometry section of the computational design workflow within the ribbon bar. With this selected, we can simply click on the B-spline curve in the View 1, and we're presented with a dialog to prompt to create the coordinate system. So let's click Yes and OK to create a base CS. A new dialog will then appear with the created node properties. This indicates GC recognized the element as a B-spline curve and created a B-spline node with the method of ByPoles. And if we close this dialog, we can see in the view we have a B-spline curve that matches the existing geometry, and there's a series of points. And in the graph view, you can see the B-spline curve node and quite a few points that are linked up to the base CS and the B-spline curve node. Now if we do the same thing for one of the shape elements, it will recognize that this is a polygon and use the ByVertices method, creating the polygon as well as the nodes for each vertice. This method is probably the best way if you'd like to use the existing geometry as the basis of the start point, but then be able to move the points around to change the geometry. But as you can see here, there are a lot of nodes in the graph window. So there's a better way if you'd just like to use this geometry as a basis without changing it. So let's highlight all the nodes except the base CS and right click and delete. The next method we could use is to start with the geometry node itself. So let's drag in a polygon node and we can change its method to ByElement. Now if we click in the element path input box, all we need to do is select the element we need in the view, and it'll populate this input box with the required element number. And there is not much indication it worked, but if you hover over the node, it will highlight the geometry in the view. A much cleaner way to target some base geometry. We can do the same thing for the B-spline curve, and you can see we have 2 different element numbers in each of the dialogues. Now to demonstrate that this will update even if the base geometry changes, let's rewind the transactions by going to the Transactions tab, and let's click on Play button to record the transactions we've already done so far, and then clicking on the green button next to the transactions to rewind them back to the beginning. If we update one of the shape elements by dragging one of the corners, for example, we can then replay the transactions and we can see the element number has not changed, but the geometry has been updated in the GC model. So let's click back on the node types palette, and now let's highlight those 2 nodes, right click and delete those as well. Now for the third approach, let's place a range box. And this is done by placing 2 points forming the bounding area of a box. So let's change to the top view and place 1 point at the top left and 1 point for the bottom right. Now to ensure the geometry is within the range, let's change the Z values of 0.1 to -100 and 100 for 0.2. Now we can drag in a range box node and link up 0.1 to the low point and 0.2 to the high point. And if we rotate around, we can see the geometry is sitting within the dotted range of the box. Now we have a range set up, we can now use a specific method within the nodes. Let's drag in a B-spline curve node and setting its method to From Elements in Range. We can now just link up the range to the one we've created, and what GC does is look for any element within that range that is a B-spline curve. We can now do the same thing for the polygon node, however this time it will find 2 elements that match the type of polygon. And the result is we can see it created 2 polygons. To assist with targeting polygons you need from the operation, if we click on the drop down from the polygon node, you can see there's quite a few options we could use to target the exact geometry we're after. We could use some filters by level name, color, weight, or style. But for this example, let's use filter by level name. So I'll pin that one out to start with. This input is a string input, so let's put in the level name inside quotation marks. I've set one to A-slab, and now you can see only 1 polygon is created. With the 3 methods we've explored, there are a variety of ways of introducing existing geometry to inform your GC model. Utilizing geometry not only from the current file, but also reference DGN files or other file formats can be generated and updated by other team members, making this an efficient way to start off the GC model. In the next video, we'll start looking at replication and really start to explore the power of computational design. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.